All right, Shams just dropped the biggest news so far of the NBA season in terms of trade, as the Miami Heat are now open to listening to offers for Jimmy Butler because he has a player option for next year's season. He's most likely going to opt out of it and try to get one last contract in this league. So, yeah, there is a chance the Miami Heat could be moving Jimmy Butler this season. And Butler's open to destinations such as two of the Texas teams, the Rockets and the Mavericks, and the Golden State Warriors. Butler is a native of Houston. And this is interesting too, with the Miami Heat 12 and 10, Tyler Hero is playing at an all-star level, and that's with Jimmy Butler maybe not playing up to expectations. Same with Bam Adebayo, Jaime Jaquez, and Nikola Jovic at times this season. You would think as the Heat get fully healthy, maybe they could make a run. So it seems like maybe Jimmy Butler does not want to re-sign with this team, or Pat Riley does not want to give Jimmy Butler a max contract, or maybe Jimmy just doesn't think this team can win a title this year, and he wants to get traded, and he put out all Western Conference teams. So today I have 5 different Jimmy Butler trades, including the 3 teams that were mentioned in the ESPN article, and just coming up with these ideas as a whole. Jimmy Butler is making $48 million this year, so it's going to cost a lot, at least player-wise, to go out and get Jimmy Butler. And I actually came up with a 6th trade as well. So we're going to start off with one that I just don't think is going to happen. It was the Dallas Mavericks team that was featured in it. It's going to be way too hard to get to $48 million unless you're including Kyrie Irving in this deal. And I assume if the Dallas Mavericks wanted Jimmy Butler, they'd want to create a big 3 of Luka, Kyrie, and Jimmy. So to get to $48.5 million, you basically have to include either Daniel Gafford or PJ Washington. And I'm sure they'd rather move Gafford if it really came down to it, just because they have Derek Lively as a center already, and PJ Washington is too key as being an impact perimeter defender for them right now. So you basically would have to include Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford, Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, and Dante Exum, all to make the money work, because if you're Dallas, you don't really want to shed off any other valuable contracts. You don't want to trade away Najee Marshall or Quentin Grimes, and this would get Jimmy Butler to Dallas. If you're Miami, though, this isn't a terrible trade. Like, you're getting Gafford that you could probably reroute, since there's no point in having him and Bam on this team. You're getting Klay Thompson. I mean, he's kind of redundant with Duncan Robinson on this team. So you know what? As I'm really talking it out loud, I don't really think there's a chance Jimmy Butler ends up as a Dallas Maverick, unless there's a third team involved, and then that could maybe move some pieces around so there's no like redundant or repetitive assets coming back to Miami or to a different team. It would be cool to see him with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, but right now the Mavericks are a top 5 team offensively, and they're a top 10 team defensively. Yeah, they could look to add another defender, but Jimmy isn't really what he was at one point in his career defensively. Jimmy's averaging around 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. The efficiency is fine. He's still not a plus 3-point shooter, and he's still a fine defender when he walks in, but I feel like some nights Jimmy's locked in and sometimes he's not. So I think we're going to go from like least likely to most likely outside of my wild card at the end. I just can't see Jimmy Butler as a Dallas Maverick. Next up, we would have this trade with the Memphis Grizzlies. They're one of the top seeds in the Western Conference. They're the only team currently that's top 5 in offensive rating, top 5 in defensive rating. This is with Triple J playing at an all-star level. This is with Ja Morant missing some games this year. Same with Desmond Bane. This team has a ton of depth on their roster. They're going to be getting G.G. Jackson back most likely in January around then. Scottie Pippen Jr. is stepping up for this team. They're getting good play out of their rookie second-round pick Jalen Wells. Zach Edey, when he's been healthy, has been solid for them, so they can afford to trade away Brandon Clark, Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard, and their first-round pick this year in exchange for Jimmy Butler. Maybe Jimmy could really gel well with Ja Morant in Memphis. I mean, that would definitely be an interesting dynamic, and I feel like we've been talking about the Memphis Grizzlies making a notable trade for years now. You're able to get a star-level player in Jimmy Butler, and you don't have to trade away Ja, Triple J, or Desmond Bane. And if it's all for a rental, if Jimmy does not re-sign with you at the end of the year, you're not going to lose sleep over any of these assets, especially if your first-round pick is in the 20s. And if you're Miami, you're getting a good defender in Marcus Smart, who has been playing better as of late after getting off to an abysmal start with the Memphis Grizzlies. You get another big man that you can maybe reroute if you just don't want him with Bam Adebayo and Khalil Ware on the team. You get Luke Kennard, also kind of repetitive because of the Duncan Robinson role and kind of what they have as 3-point shooters. It's really just to make the money work, and a first-round pick. I don't know if Pat Riley would settle for this trade. Maybe he'd demand a G.G. Jackson or Jalen Wells or Vince Williams in this trade. I would think about moving Vince Williams out of all 3 of those guys if I were the Grizzlies, but I just could see them maybe trying to go all in with the core they have. Maybe they think the West could be wide open this year, and if they add Jimmy Butler, they could beat OKC or a different team in the playoffs. So the Memphis Grizzlies weren't mentioned in that article, but I would say they are a title contender the way they've been playing right now. The other team that was mentioned in this article, the Houston Rockets. So there could be 2 versions of this trade. First off, Dylan Brooks, I think, has to be in this trade unless you're going to include Fred VanVleet, but I don't think Miami really wants Fred VanVleet's potential expiring because it's a team option for next year, and I assume they'd want to get Jimmy Butler with Fred Fred VanVleet in Houston if you are the Rockets. Steven Adams to make the money work, Jeff Green to make the money work, pretty much expiring contracts that Miami can get off at the end of the year. I don't know if they'd rather have a Jock Londale on their team, but I doubt it. And then you're getting the Rockets first round pick this year, which like Memphis's could be later in the draft. Dillon Brooks has been great, and you can maybe flip Dillon Brooks. This is where a third team can get involved, but Dillon Brooks is going to be, I think, comparable to some other guys we'll have in some later trades, and I would say Dillon Brooks is better than Marcus Smart. Dillon Brooks is just as good, if not better, than Daniel Gafford, so I think he could headline a trade the way he's been playing this year defensively, and he has been a positive three-point shooter this year as well. And then you're throwing in your first round pick and then the swap for Brooklyn in 2027, the main asset in this deal. You could also throw in Cam Whitmore if you didn't want to give up both of those first round picks or maybe that 2027 first. I don't know what Houston still has for Cam Whitmore in their future plans. Maybe they'd rather include like a Jalen Green in this trade, but they can't do that because of the poison pill since they re-signed him on that rookie extension. So this is pretty much how it could work out financially with the Houston Rockets. And I don't think they should go all in on trading away an Amen Thompson or Tari Eason or Reed Shepherd. And if you can hold on to Cam Whitmore, I would do that because I think there'll be more exciting of a name that comes up down the line. Hey, maybe it's Devin Booker. Maybe it's somebody on the Sixers or the Pacers or just a better player or younger player at least than Jimmy Butler that you could become as a top trade destination for. Maybe De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento. You never know what can happen around the NBA. Stars can become available at a given moment. Maybe it is Giannis, right? Like there's just better players than Jimmy Butler. So I wouldn't want to mortgage the future, but I do see this as a in-season upgrade. But I think Houston would be more likely to say no than Miami. Next up, we're going to talk about the desperate LA Lakers. And this is a deal that they could throw out there. It's pretty much a lot of matching salary. I think Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, who has shined in Miami, could be beneficial pieces to this team. You're going to be sending Kevin Love to the Lakers, so you get a reunion with him and LeBron, which is kind of funny. And then Jimmy, Josh Richardson, and Thomas Bryant are going there. Lakers are giving up. D'Angelo Russell's expiring. Rui, Vincent, and then Jared Vanderbilt, who doesn't have much trade value right now because he has been hurt for the last year. Maybe when he's eligible to be traded, Max Christie, because it would be tough to move Max Christie because of some restrictions as well. And then the Lakers could throw in a 2029 first, and that is deep down the line, which I think could become a little bit more valuable. Maybe you could throw protection on that because I also struggle to figure out what Jimmy Butler's value is at because he could be a free agent at the end of the year. If you were the LA Lakers, you'd like to think that you could re-sign Jimmy Butler and then you can have Jimmy, LeBron, and AD go at it. I think the Lakers could be more inclined to go after Brandon Ingram just because he's a lot younger than Jimmy Butler, and I think a little bit more obtainable as well since his salary isn't as high as almost $50 million per year for Jimmy Butler. So this is the Lakers trade idea. You know they're going to be linked to him. I don't think the Clippers are going to be linked to Jimmy Butler because they'd have to trade either James Harden or Norman Powell and all their depth. So I don't think the Clippers go from Paul George to Jimmy Butler. It just doesn't seem anything different than a lateral move. So I think the Lakers would be the only LA team that would be calling up the Miami Heat. Second to last team, which I think could be the most realistic. My wild card, I think, is just like a funny idea. And this one is going to be the Golden State Warriors. They were linked in that article. It recently came out that Golden State is trying to pair up a second star with Steph Curry, but it's going to hurt. You're going to have to give up a decent amount, and I think the Warriors would be overpaying in a most likely package. You'd have to move Andrew Wiggins to 26 mil. You're not trading Steph. You're not trading Draymond, so you're going to have to do some combination of Melton, Anderson, Kuminga, and or Looney. Jimmy Butler, Richardson, Pele Larson, Josh Richardson coming back just to do a 4-for-4 equal player swap. Here, the Warriors don't have to give up any first-round picks, which I think could be a little bit more enticing to throw in Jonathan Kuminga and don't mortgage a 2026, 2028, 2030 first-round picks because Wiggins, I think, is a good player, and he's having an incredible year, so I don't even know if this is an upgrade, but you really can't get this deal done without Andrew Wiggins, and I think he could help out Miami, and that's why Miami would be interested in this trade because Miami doesn't own all their first-round picks going forward. Some go to the Hornets, some go to the Thunder. They don't really want to risk being bad, and you have Bam Adebayo going into his prime, even though he is having a down year. Tyler Hero is playing at like an all-star caliber level. The Eastern Conference is wide open. You send Jimmy to the West, and you get this package. I know Melton is hurt, but you get Anderson, Kuminga, and Wiggins, who can help this core right now. You could easily still make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. So I think this could be one of the more realistic ones, and it really all comes down to, does Golden State want to move Andrew Wiggins for Jimmy Butler? Do they think giving up Kyle Anderson and Kuminga is a big enough gap between Wiggins and Butler? Because so far this year, I don't think it is, but if you think you can get Jimmy Butler one last locked-in Jimmy run in the playoffs and that can just try to maximize Steph's final years in this league, then you do it. It is a little bit risky, but I do think Jimmy to Golden State is probably the most likely scenario, unless Golden State wants to get Brandon Ingram, because I think that can complicate some things as well, because the teams that are interested in Jimmy Butler might be more interested in Brandon Ingram, because he's going to cost the same amount of money, around $50 million per year, but you're going to have to extend him. But at least Brandon Ingram is a lot younger than Jimmy Butler, because I don't know how many good years you're getting left of Jimmy. And this last one is kind of like a joke, just because it's hard to find somebody making $40 million to just throw it and easily match at Jimmy Butler. Why not this trade? The Brooklyn Nets have been respectable this year. What if they just pivot? Instead of moving Dennis Schroeder, Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, and Dorian Finney-Smith, they say, screw it. We're going to get Jimmy to a big market, and we're going to let him run this team here in Brooklyn, and we're gonna, like, the Eastern Conference is wide open. We're gonna make the playoffs this year. We're just not gonna go for Cooper Flag. You're just giving up basically Ben Simmons' salary, Noah Clowney, Derrick Whitehead, just some young guys that maybe have potential in Miami, and the Knicks' first round pick, which is probably gonna be in the 20s this year for Jimmy Butler. I just thought this was kind of funny of an idea, but I think it's probably more likely that the Nets look to trade Cam Johnson, Finney-Smith, and Dennis Schroeder instead of buying at this year's deadline. So that is gonna be it for me. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know what you think is the most likely Jimmy Butler trade scenario here. Do you think it's a team that I didn't mention? Please let me know down below. Drop a thumbs up if you guys did enjoy, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.